day, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is CNS and PNS, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So CNS, it consists of brain and spinal cord. Very easy. Two stuff belong to central nervous systems. It's the brain and spinal cord. And we have two functions that they govern. One is parasympathetic nervous systems. It's when the body is at the resting state. It's when it's relaxed, when it's feeding. So it's responsible for digestions. And it makes everything calm down. So it decreases respiration and heart rate and increases digestions. Sympathetic nervous system have the opposite function. So they start activating the whole system. It's when your heart starts pumping faster, you breathe faster. And the reason for that, as we know, human beings have been on this planet for millions and millions of years. So if you think of the Stone Age human being, their primary function was to find food. And in order to find food, they had to walk. So people were nomads. They had to walk around to find the food, gather the food. And of course, you had outside threats, mostly animals, but also other stuff. So you had to, activate the system very fast in order to run away if you have a lion around or you have a bear around or something like that. So that system that was developed for the Stone Age system is now applied for the modern system, the modern human that is living in a town, in an urban area. So the original function was, to survive, to run away when you had threats. And now you have, of course, yes, let's see, we have the modern system. We can be hit by a bus maybe or something like that. So it's good to have this sympathetic system also. So you will start running fast, so you will not be hit by a bus or a falling tree or something like that. But the original function was something much different than it's now. So you could say that many of the troubles that the current human being is facing is because the system was designed for other situations, much bigger catastrophes and problems than today's human being is facing. So we have a nervous system that was designed for something to function millions and millions and million years ago. And now it has to function in the modern world that it was not originally designed to function in. So that is why many of these current, let's say, therapy or current exercise forms is to calm the system, like yoga or meditating or something like that, because the system was designed for something totally else, and now you have to adjust it to the current system. No one really talks about it. No one really tells you all these stuff. You just have something and then they make the best use of it. But it would be very wise and very logical for all of us to start thinking, what was the body designed originally for? And then we know our body has a way to adapt to different situations by having this ability to have mutations. So the original gene that functions in a special way can be modified by mutations. So not all mutations means that you create or end up having a disease, but it could be also adjusting to a new situation. But that's more in a time period of like 100 years, not in a couple of years or decades. So human brain development. Human brain development starts soon after conception and continues into early adulthood. The fetal brain begins to develop during the 3rd week of gestation. So it's very, very important to realize that you start having a brain at the 3rd week, and it continues until the 4th week. And usually women are not aware of this because they're not aware of being pregnant. It's so early in the development. So you really need to know these basic knowledge in order to, when you have a life, also to live in reality, not guess and hypothesize. I mean, if it's a known fact, then it is a known fact. Just learn the basic. So neural progenitor cells begin to divide and differentiate into neurons and glia, the 2 cell types that form the basis of the nervous system. So I just told you that we have 2 cell types. It's neurons and glia. However, the glia, they have a subtype, and that subtype is something totally magic. It's called astrocytic glia cells. And here is a picture of it. In humans, a single astrocyte cell can interact with up to 2 million synapses at a time. It has an amazing way of functioning. And we know that the primary function of neurons is to spike. But one of the tasks of the astrocyte is to moderate this spiking. So it's not out of control. It spikes in a nice and cultivated way, structured way. And let's see at the brain from another point of view. At 7 weeks, we have brain. It separates into 3 distinct parts: front brain, midbrain, and hindbrain. And then you talk about first trimester. At that point, you have neurons and synapses. They begin to develop in the spinal cord. You have the 2nd trimester, the brain takes control of bodily functions and breathing movements begin. And at the 3rd trimester, the brain separates into right and left halves and continues to grow rapidly. So this hypothesis of you have a right half and a left half, and the importance of it and so on. So it's not like the brain was that from the beginning. It starts at the 3rd trimester to be divided into right and left halves. And we still do not understand this left and right half. We still do not understand why some people end up being left-handed. There is nothing that we have not found a gene for it. We have not found an original reason for it. We just know these are observations. We just know that this is what has happened in the brain, but still no one really understands it. And from my personal experience, I have seen, like, I don't know, they talk about, I mean, when I take different courses or I'm at different conferences, then because you usually say that they are in minority, these left-handed people, but all of the sudden I took a language courses and we were like outperformed by the left-handed people. They were like 7 out of 10 were left-handed in that course that I was taking. And at the conference, I remember, because you can see the left-handed, I mean, they want to use the left part of their body more. So you could see when they are situated and they want to sit there in a conference hall. So they function in another way. So, and still we have absolutely no idea what this is the fact. Why? Is it something that nature at some point saw that this is more valuable for some tasks to be left-handed? Absolutely no one knows. So we are in 2021. This is like one of the essential things that you start, because everything is based. Are you left-handed? You write with the left hand. Your left hand is your strong hand. You lift everything with your left hand. You have to design everything with the left part. And there is still no, people have absolutely no ideas. We have all these conferences, we have all these technology. I mean, they just love to talk about machine learning. They love to talk about neural network, computational neuroscience, but absolutely no one is focusing on the fact that this is, you know, it's something huge. We still don't know. I mean, was it like where like Stone Age people were all right-handed, and then at some point we became to have people that are left-handed? It's still a mystery. And in my opinion, it's lovely to want to solve these absolutely very, very hard troubles of the brain. But if we do not understand the basics, if we do not understand the essential way of how the brain functions, it's not logical to believe that we can understand when it comes to those really complicated stuff that happens in the brain. So my suggestions to everyone who listens is start, define. We write all these books, we write all our hypotheses, we write about everything's background. Start defining for the body or for every organ or whatever. What is the basic? What is known about the basics? What is still unknown? Try to figure out the basic first, and then we will manage to solve all those complicated stuff. But if we have holes in the knowledge system about the basic development of anything, the brain or any other organ, then we will not be able to make sense of those complicated cases. So PNS, it's very easy. We said CNS, what it is? It is the brain and it's the spinal cord. So everything left that is not CNS is PNS. And it has also a very primary function, a very primary role. It is to connect the CNS to organs, limbs, and skin. So when they want to, we would like to make all these artificial skins. We want to do all these artificial limbs, organs. We have to really understand the PNS as well. Many people, they just jump over this step. They just look at the CNS and then they hope that the PNS also follows it. But you have to see the whole picture, the basis of it, in order to be making something really sophisticated. So now I'm just going to take one case study, and it's Canavan disease. It's a rare genetic neurological disorder characterized by the spongy degeneration of the white matter in the brain. Affected infants may appear normal at birth, but usually develop symptoms between 3 to 6 months of age. Canavan disease belongs to a group of disorders known as the leukodystrophies. The leukodystrophies are a group of rare, progressive metabolic genetic disorders that can affect the brain, spinal cord, and often the nerves outside the central nervous system. In other words, the peripheral nerves. So, Canavan disease, you inherit it. It's nothing that what we know, it's not like in the environment is, so maybe some mutations very rarely occur that is not inherited, but 99.99% is Canavan disease. The reason for it is genes that are mutated. There's one gene that is mutated on chromosome 17 that leads to Canavan disease, and it's a malfunction of leukocytes. And I will later on talk about leukocytes at another workshop. Leukocytes, it's not just in children diseases. You can have it affected also different form of late stage brain diseases, like in Parkinson, and you have lots of Parkinson's that can have the reason are that leukocytes are not functioning well. But that is what I'm saying. People are now for dementia, Alzheimer, Parkinson, and all these old people's diseases, they are plunging in billions of euros, dollars, whatever, billions of something inside. They're financing it. And since we don't know the origin of the brain, how it really functions from, step 0, step 1, then solving these diseases that we have not even defined them, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure, as they say, Alzheimer is not one disease, it has subtypes, and then maybe you should rename the subtypes also, that is not Alzheimer, it's something like that, something else, but similar to Alzheimer and so on. So, in my opinion, we will not understand the full picture unless we start to understand the basic of the brain, how it develops. And we should be very, very objective when we study the brain. We should look at it historically, I mean, how it originated. Because now, okay, we have all these very nice stuff. We want to look at the brain of the fish, and we want to look at the brain of the birds, and so on. And when it comes to astrocytes, it's not, you can look at neurons, these neural networks, yes, for zebrafish and fish is very nice, but astrocytes, maybe this is the reason why we are humans, and that is like best studied also in humans and human cells and so on. So we have to start to figure out what's the goal. I mean, if you want to know everything on this earth, of course, you have to include all creatures, all insects, all animals, everything has to be included. But if your specific aim and goal is the clinical humans diseases, then you should also understand what's essential there. Neurons are very important, but we have astrocytes that many people are not really looking at. And astrocytes, they start to be expressed around embryonic day 16. So until embryonic day 16, we have some stage of brain that it's just neurons, and then you have these astrocytes and so on. So this is up to someone to start to discuss. Can you define the brain to be a brain before embryonic day 16? Because before embryonic day 16, we don't have the astrocytes. So this is also, the definition of the brain is also very, I see like people who are not in doctors or medical fields, like in lots of engineers, they are under impression that neurons equals brain, which is a wrong impression. And this is like, if you're a young person under 30, you can discuss this with someone. But as all in science and research, people who are over 60, if you start talking with them about astrocytes, they they go into shock, because they have been believing as if it's written in the stone, and it's like Bible, neurons are the stuff, neurons equals your brain. And then all of the sudden you are going to make them aware of, well, it's not the whole story. And then also it's questionable if you can talk about the brain when you only talk about neurons. You have to have these other cells as well. So in my opinion, the reason why we 2021 have so much in humanity and in society so many problems is because we have not concentrated on basic stuff. We just love to say, I just send something with the power of engineers to another planet, but the basic stuff no one wants to discuss. So when you don't discuss basic stuff, you don't discuss basic definitions. So those conclusions, those talks that you're now performing, it's not reality. It's because the starting point is not reality. So the more complicated stuff that you design, the more far away from reality you will become. Because it's like this: if you have if you can correct a mistake or fake something that is fake on the beginning stage, so yes, it's achievable without having maybe side effects. But the longer it goes, the harder it gets. And now I want to look at stuff from different sides. And there are now I don't know specifically what religion, but there are, the number of 40 is mentioned in many religions, that they say until 40 you can correct whatever it is when it comes to your brain system, because the habits you have is the synapses that has been built up in the brain. And until 40, the brain is so plastic that you are able to change your habits without having major side effects. But after 40, this is very different. And this is something not that I have been reading in scientific articles. It's the religion part that, I don't know, it's some of, I remember somewhere. So it's important to understand the timeline. It's important to understand like, I want to this I don't what I don't like in the study system in Finland, but they are like they take these, you have high school graduates until 20. I mean, there are many, it happens everywhere. It's not just Finland, it's in the whole world. You have very hardworking people until they're 20, and then they come into the university system. And unfortunately, our university system is very corrupt in the way that they scale out people who they help and who they don't help. So you have someone, that is what I'm saying, it's just like having a makeup, it's just the surface. It looks as if they are very successful researchers or professors, but the brain of this person has not developed correct the first 20 years, because they have done like nothing in the school, absolutely nothing in the school. And they have very bad grades and so on. But all of the sudden they are taken into universities, and then they have been favored by and handpicked by some professors, and then they become researchers and they become professors. But this person's brain has been starting to work from the time period when they are like 20 until 20. They have done nothing but having fun, they have been playing football, they have been doing this and that. I mean, they have essentially been having fun until they are 20. So their brain is, I mean, those synapses that you need for the steps 0 and 1, they should have been developed when you're 7 or 8 years old. That synapse has not been there when you're 7 and 8. And then at the time point they're 20, they want to start to have those synapses and then go on and go on. And one of the reasons, this is also one of my hypotheses, is why politicians get so many these horrible diseases, Alzheimer and Parkinson, is because they belong to this category. Meaning, like 99.99% of politicians have like no education at all. It's just they have just been taking stuff from here and there, but it's not real education. So when they give them a position as a politician, but the brain of that human being it lacks the essential synapses that should have been there when they were like 7, 8, or 9. So all of the sudden that you give them the responsibility to represent the whole country, and this is going to develop into disaster, because the brain of them it lacks step 0 and step 1, and that is why many of these die of Alzheimer, because it's wrong. The whole neuronal system or the whole astrocyte system is wrong in the brain of these people. And like Thatcher, I'm pretty sure she thought that she's very, very smart and very outstanding. And we saw what a lousy way of life she had when she died. She was like totally dement and totally Alzheimer. So if we want to create something that has human value, we need to understand step 0, we need to understand step 1. So we need to understand how our school system has to be designed, because we have this primary education from the time we are like 7 to 13. And we need to understand, this is an essential part when the nervous system, when the astronauts, when the astrocytes, when the neurons, the glias, they're taking different shapes, different synapses is formed. And usually, I mean, if you have somewhat normal life, that part should be developed well. And if that part from the time you're 7 to 13 is well developed, you perform well in the school, you get good grades, then you will know that you have the step 0 and you have the step 1, and you can create whatever you want as an adult. And an adult, I mean, until you get 200, I mean, until you die. So you have, because you have step 0 and you have step 1. But, and this is also, this is more my own experience, not I have not looked at the statistics, but this is the difference, because boys start educate themselves at the age of 20. Until 20, they just want to have fun because they have different body system. They grow in a different way. Their muscles needs lots of movements. So this, like playing football, skiing, whatever. So their time from birth until they are 20 is more into getting the body to develop. You get nice muscles, because they grow until they are around 21, which most girls at 16 is what they are. I mean, I myself, I didn't until 16. It was the length, and after 16 I did not. So grow in length. But boys, they grow until they're 21, and it's like their body is not designed to sit and study until they're 21. It's designed to grow. They have to have these muscle movements. So they don't sit in the class and concentrate. They do everything necessary in order to move. So their brain, like 99% of men, the 0 stage and step 1 stage is not developed there. And then when they come in the universities, they want to, because they get favored by the professors and so on. They say, okay, you're from this family, you're from this, and I want you to give you this what is it called? This degree, in order for you to create this position in society. But the reality is that these people, when they're 100 years old, you can look at their entire life, what they have, what has really happened there. They are not really creating something that is real, it's just fake. And we have now that I have been going back and forth very much between Sweden and Finland, because I wanted to create collaboration. But I see now that many of these now that for the past 10 or 15 years in Finland that have got their PhD, it's total fake PhD, because you can see their original school performance. There were very poor performance, there were very bad grades, and all of the sudden they were decided, okay, you should be in this system, we should give you the PhD degree and so on and so on, and also medical degree and so on. But these people they lack step 0, they lack step 1, and they create just chaos, disaster, and total catastrophe. So we will see now that historically, when people look back to 2021, like the time period between 1990 and 2020, they are going to say there were so many, or let's say to 2000 from, it's a bit hard to say exactly what, but modern time, every decade has its stuff. But in Finland in the 70s, it was very hard to get PhDs. So you would believe that the PhDs in the 70s in Finland were more real than the PhDs that were generated in, like, say, in 2020. I have seen now a doctor in Helsinki 2016 who has done a PhD in genetics, and it's just connection, because she comes from a small town in Finland, and they have known people here and there, and it is exactly like the PhDs for the Chinese people. They took lots of Chinese people to Sweden and Finland who have really, really bad English knowledge. It's so bad they are not capable of writing an article. So you know that the article, they have like no idea of the substance of the article. The only thing is that they know is maybe to perform a PCR. So they have been given a PhD title, but what they know is a PCR. The same stuff is also, I know lots of people now, I have looked at their PhDs in Helsinki, and it's in genetics, but it's not PhD in genetics. They're just very, I don't want even to say they are very good in PCR. It's just they have the knowledge. The difference between them is they know what PCR is, but if you just talk with someone on the street, maybe they cannot define what PCR is. That's the difference, but it's not the real PhD. It's just, okay, she is MD, PhD, but it's nothing real. And this is like catastrophe. This is disaster. This is why the system we have in Finland is not real. It's just based on connection here and there, but they're not really educated. They lack step 0, they lack step 1. And this shows why we are so badly prepared. We are, it's 5 million people. We should not have an education minister in Finland that says people who are 55 plus should get retired and out of the system. So it's going to be space for the 20 plus people. This is said by someone whose brain lacks the steps 0 and 1, because a 55-year-old is so rich, the brain of that, if it's a healthy 55-year-old, that brain is so rich, it can create something so amazing that is totally impossible for a 20-year-old to design. But since our politicians' brain lacks step 0 and step 1, we get societies that are as primitive as the Stone Age people because we lack reality. And this just repeats and repeats generation after generation, because those who really understand what's real, you know, they are either hushed up, they are silenced, or they just say, okay, I give up. You want to live like a primitive Stone Age people? Do it. I create my own world that is based on reality and real intelligence. So now we have the Canavan disease. We know that it's a gene that is mutated. We know we have the problem on the base of the genes, but we have no cure. We can only offer therapies that handles the symptoms. So yes, they have lots of problems that you will start seeing at 3 and 6 months old. And they can even have seizures. So if you have seizures, then you have to give them anti-seizures medications. And why I'm talking about Canavan diseases, because this is, the seizure can be, you can see seizure in many diseases that are not defined to be Canavan disease. But if you you need to understand the basis of seizure. Why is the seizure occurring? So now you know one gene. So if you are thinking like someone who actually wants to create something that is real, then you should say, okay, I have this gene that is giving, is resulted into Canavan disease. And one of the symptoms is seizure. So could it be that this gene also plays a role in those other seizure diseases? Then you have to start to look, well, what's the percentage of it affecting? Because when it comes to seizure, then prediction is one of the very important steps, because our body is designed like this, that most people who have had seizures, they start to learn, a couple of minutes before you have a seizure, what changes in your body, and then you can do stuff, to try to avoid the most damage that can be done to your body. But if you're a child, if you're like 8-year-old child and you get seizure, it's not so easy for yourself to be able to handle this. So if you can predict and predict with a very high accuracy, not an accuracy that is around 30%, you should have it around 70% at least. So then the parents, or if a child is so badly so that they're like in a hospital, you can predict, so you can better try to avoid those really nasty catastrophic situations. So this is one of them. If you have a healthy, nice brain, you always try to see the whole picture, because when you see the whole picture, you will also see the reality. And the reality is that what we are offering for seizure is just maybe 20% of the total possibilities that already is around. But we are not offering the whole package. We are not offering 100% therapies because we are not seeing the whole pictures. Okay, guys, have a nice day.